Oh, I can't wait. I love Michael Keaton. He's one of my favorite funny people. And I love Jack Nicholson, and I love the trailer. I love the whole thing. I'm ready to go.
Oh, it's going to be live, man. It's going to be live. I'm going to come and see it.
The trailer was better than the movie we just saw.
How do you think Michael Keaton's going to be as Batman?
Sexy. Very sexy. Oh, he's just a gorgeous guy. He has great legs and everything. Michael Keaton's a great actor, so I'm really excited to see it.
What kind of Joker is Jack Nicholson going to be?
Nicholson, like I say, he's great all the time, so I think he is a Joker, so he's probably just going to play himself.
I mean, with Jack Nicholson in it, I mean, how can you go wrong? I mean, especially his makeup, that's great, man.
Jack Nicholson is casted as the perfect Joker. Michael Keaton's adorable, and my husband will just be counting the minutes to see Kim Basinger.
But the only thing I could have changed about it was letting me play the babe.
Kim Basinger, yeah, I can see either you or Kim Basinger.
What she's got that I don't have?
So intense with, how he comes swooping in on all these scenes in that car, man.
I like the Batmobile. And,
yeah? Why?
I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Yeah?
I love the Batmobile. It looks so cool. Yeah. I wish I could ride in it.
And what was your favorite part of the whole trailer?
When Michael Keaton comes in and says, "I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman."
The young people of today can hardly be expected to understand the impact that Tim Burton's Batman had on moviegoers in the summer of 1989. The general audience of the time mostly knew Batman as the campy, self-conscious, broad daylight superhero of the Adam West TV show.
Holy D'Artagnan.
You've made your point.
Nothing in movies prepared viewers for this radical rethinking of the character. The weird darkness of the themes, the dense, oppressive production design, or Jack Nicholson's performance as the Joker. All of this was alarming, electric stuff back then. Of course, it was all familiar territory for people who had read The Dark Knight Returns and The Killing Joke, but we'll get to that. If you remember the summer of 1989 at all, you'll likely recall the Bat frenzy that seized the nation at the time. It was an authentic and unforgettable zeitgeist moment. Although many fans had grown concerned about the casting of comedic actor Michael Keaton as Batman, most complaints evaporated once the film was screened. Never before on screen had Batman been taken so seriously and his world rendered so impressively and expensively. There had been many blockbusters before Batman, of course, but most had been unpremeditated, almost inadvertent. Neither Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas, nor Steven Spielberg, for some examples, had studied the mechanics of tentpoling or tried to master its mass marketing strategies when they collectively conceived their mega hits. Coppola devised The Godfather as an art picture. Lucas saw Star Wars as a personal film. And Spielberg's Jaws was a tight thriller that ran out of control and took an identity of its own.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
In the mid-80s, we had high-concept movies, but not high-concept merchandise to accompany them. There were no Beverly Hills Cop toy badges or 48-hour watches.
Who is this guy?
I don't know. Until we find out, keep a lid on it.
Michael Keaton was indeed an eccentric but brilliant choice to play the titular role, and all these years later, there are still plenty who consider him the best Batman ever, and certainly the best Bruce Wayne ever.
Could you tell me which of these guys is Bruce Wayne?
Well, I'm not sure.
Thanks anyway.
On screen, Keaton reliably comes off as very strange and very smart. The exact qualities Bruce Wayne should exude. And this is a different take on Wayne than the movies that would follow. Here, he's a weird, rich recluse, and he's not particularly famous. His parents' murder has long been forgotten. Today, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who didn't know Batman's origin story. But Batman cast the whole thing as a mystery to be solved by journalist/love interest Vicky Vale, and it works surprisingly well.
Mr. Wayne.
Jack Nicholson's Joker is still a sight to behold. After being dropped into toxic chemicals and suffering botched plastic surgery in a very dark, very creepy scene, the clown prince of crime is born. Nicholson's gangster-turned-lunatic has endured due in large part to the actor's pre-inclination for portraying insane characters in the cinema. Nicholson became the perfect on-screen image of the role, happily murdering his victim with a lethal joke and a smart one-liner, with his devilish smile and frightening look.
Oh, I got a live one here.
There's a moment early in the film where pre-Joker Jack Napier is oozing vanity as he looks in the mirror.
You look fine.
I didn't ask.
A similar joke is cracked about a huge mirror inside Bruce Wayne's house. In contrast to the self-absorbed Napier, Wayne's mirror is eventually shown to be nothing more than an entryway designed to conceal one of Batman's many hidden rooms within the structure. Napier is shown from the beginning of the film as a pompous narcissist with a penchant for the best things in life. He keeps his elegant ways after becoming the Joker, preferring to spread his colorful personality to everything he touches. When he uses sulfuric acid to disfigure his mistress, he refers to her as a piece of art. Similarly, he spreads his influence by repainting works at a local art museum using gleaming colors. As a madman, Nicholson's Joker remains a sophisticated adversary, brightening up the city with his evil touch.
I am the world's first fully functioning homicidal artist.
The film steps away from comic book legend insomuch as it suggests that the Joker is directly responsible for the evolution of Batman, having killed his parents in front of him. Tying the two so closely is a strange but ultimately interesting move as the two face destruction in each other. Burton described the film's central rivalry as a duel of the freaks, as both Batman and the Joker are deeply disturbed.
I made you. You made me first.
Burton opens his Batman with the operatic strains of Danny Elfman's full orchestra heroism, slyly suggesting the unabashedly heroic way Batman sees himself. After its opening credit sequence, during which Robert Pratt's camera roams around what is eventually revealed to be a metal bat signal, Burton establishes his vision of Gotham City, a brazenly surreal environment that owes more to the dystopian sci-fi visions of Metropolis and Blade Runner than to any of the notions of the neo-noirish realism that underpins Christopher Nolan's later films.
This town needs an enema.
However, judged on its own merits and without considering what followed, Tim Burton's Batman is a strange beast. From a modern perspective, particularly one shaped by trends in the superhero genre over the past decade, Batman doesn't look or feel like a comic book adaptation. It has its own distinct style, its own distinct sensibility, one largely missing even from the more overtly stylized and auteur superhero films like Logan or Thor Ragnarok. It is largely disinterested in being a faithful translation of its comic book source material.
Tell me, kid, you ever danced with the devil by the pale moonlight?
There are obvious comic influences on the film. The murder of the Wayne family is obviously drawn from Frank Miller's portrayal of the crime in The Dark Knight Returns, right down to the shattered pearls. Burton cites the Killing Joke as a major creative influence, and it certainly informs aspects of Jack Napier's transformation into the Joker, most notably the encounter with Batman at the chemical plant. At the end of the day, Batman feels like a Tim Burton film. Though Burton's stylistic sensibility would come out even stronger in the soon-to-be sequel, the first film in the franchise reflects his own interests and preoccupations. Bruce Wayne is very much a Tim Burton protagonist, something reinforced by the controversial casting of Michael Keaton in the role. Keaton and Burton frame Wayne as a weirdo, and one of the film's most infamous choices, Wayne even sleeps upside down, like a bat. Get it?
Mr. Wayne told me to tell you that he might be a little late.
I'm not a bit surprised.
The movie ends with the introduction of the bat signal, promising more adventures to come. And they did, because Batman was huge, and even more importantly, it was omnipresent, a cultural force that stretched beyond cinemas and into record stores and fast food restaurants. A sequel was inevitable, though everyone involved needed to be convinced the sequel was a good idea. Burton only agreed to return when sequel-y elements like Vicky Vale were dropped. Keaton only returned when he scored a massive $10 million raise. The resulting film, Batman Returns, is Tim Burton at his most Burton-esque, right down to an opening with a cameo from Pee-wee's Big Adventure star Paul Reubens.
Ah!
From the moment we see young Oswald, soon to be Penguin, in a cage in front of an outlandish white Christmas tree, before his parents send him floating through a twisted snow-capped winter wonderland, you know that this version of Gotham is different. We flash forward 30 plus years later, and once again, it is the Christmas season in Gotham City.
Well, here's hoping. Maybe with a little luck, Gotham will have its first Merry Christmas in a good long while.
The city has a dark, gothic, Cacotopia-like feel to it that is contrasted with the cheerfulness of Christmas. The barbarous city is constantly covered in a blanket of snow, seasoned with Christmas lights and decorations that engulf everything. The seasonal setting allows Burton to really show how terrifying of a city Gotham is. As the film continues, the city is designed by a pack of former circus performers turned criminals called the Red Triangle Gang, led by Penguin. Whenever they attack, they don't seem interested in robbing people or looting stores for cash. Instead, they only seem to be interested in causing chaos and destruction. While the city's police and city officials are shown to be inept and useless at their jobs and keeping order, the only thing holding the city together is a mentally disturbed billionaire vigilante who dresses like a giant bat. Batman Returns is ultimately about a bunch of outsiders at Christmas trying to get through all the bullshit of the holiday season. Gone is the noir drenched in gangster lore from Tim Burton's first movie, instead replaced with a strange brightness, one that lives only to juxtapose the dark grit of Gotham and serve the director's goth pop aesthetic.
Honey, I'm home! Oh, I forgot. I'm not married.
Michelle Pfeiffer's Selina Kyle is a beleaguered secretary working for the Santa Claus of Gotham and deeply corrupt businessman Max Schreck. She's a lonely, quirky Poindexter all alone in the big city and invisible except for her utility to callous, powerful men.
How can you be so mean to someone so meaningless?
She asks Schreck before he pushes her out of a window. After her resurrection, Selina returns to her apartment, a pink monstrosity of dollhouses and stuffed animals, a little girl's idea of a woman's apartment, and tears the place apart. The scene of Pfeiffer stabbing stuffed animals down a garbage disposal while she licks her lips and cackles like a crazy person is a vision of unchecked feminine rage. Her take on Catwoman is aggressively sexual, an angry repudiation of the meek and chaste girl woman that Schreck wantonly murdered. Danny DeVito's Oswald Cobblepot is raised by penguins living in an abandoned zoo exhibit, and then a circus troupe. He returns to Gotham to claim his birthright after transforming his adoptive family into the aforementioned crime syndicate called the Red Triangle Circus Gang. After much mayhem, Cobblepot runs for mayor in a plot that echoes the 60s Batman TV series.
The people of Gotham City are not as simple-minded as he might think.
Eventually, he discovers that his true calling is back in the sewers and fully reverts back into the monstrous Penguin. As Jack Nicholson's Joker once proclaimed, "Where is the Batman?"
And where is the Batman?
Pretty much at home, washing his tights. Michael Keaton returns with his neurotic, manic, depressive Bruce Wayne, but really doesn't have much to do in this sequel. Bruce is a lonely man, with just Alfred as his friend and family during the holiday season. Perhaps the only negative about Batman Returns is that, with the tremendous characterization of Penguin and Catwoman, and the dimensionality of Schreck, Batman kinda gets the short end of the stick. But mirroring Burton, Michael Keaton is much more assured in the role this time around, unafraid to get a bit more spirited and completely nailing the more dramatic beats of the character. Even with its somewhat lacking screen time, the film does a fine job of exploring the duality of the Bruce Wayne / Batman persona and juxtapositioning that with Selina Kyle / Catwoman, with the latter filling a much more satisfying role than a simple villain or love interest.
I guess I'm tired of wearing masks.
Me too.
As he so often does in his films, Burton turns his gaze towards the outcasts in society. As a highly introspective individual deemed weird or odd all his life, these are the sorts of people Burton relates to. But what makes Batman Returns resonate more strongly than many of his other films is that Burton is able to widen his thematic gaze, examining not just the individual, but society itself, the social forces that create outcasts, and the large-scale ramifications of doing so. Burton also strikes an uncompromisingly bleak tone this time around, refusing to pull any punches or shy away from the darker aspects of this essential thematic discussion. Through this dark, three-dimensional look at our culture, Burton clearly pinpoints a source for the misery and loneliness so often present in his works, and the source is society itself. In fact, if there's any one element that clearly distinguishes this from all the other Batman stories, it's that Batman Returns doesn't present Gotham as an entity worth saving. If anything, they deserve what they get, and Batman may be part of the problem, not the solution.
I tried to save you to grab you.
It seems like every woman you try to save ends up dead. Or deeply resentful. Maybe you should retire.
At the end of the movie, the villains are vanquished and the city is safe, and like always, Bruce is alone. After his final battle with Catwoman and the Penguin, Bruce gets picked up by Alfred and the two make their way home to Wayne Manor, presumably to watch It's a Wonderful Life on TV. After briefly stopping to pick up a stray cat, because symbolism, Alfred offers some of his fatherly butler advice, and then, just before Elfman's score kicks in and we see the bat signal illuminate the snow-covered Gotham skyline, Bruce utters the last line of the movie.
Merry Christmas, Alfred. Goodwill toward men. And women.
Burton's Batman movies leave behind a complicated and underappreciated legacy, but that's mostly due to the fact that these movies were lumped in with what some consider the worst of the series. When Tim Burton was politely asked to step down from the franchise once Batman Returns was essentially deemed too dark to sell Happy Meal toys, Joel Schumacher stepped up. To his credit, Batman Forever isn't that bad. Silly? Yes. Kid-friendly? Yes. But not necessarily bad. Especially when it committed to a tone and executed it well enough. Batman and Robin, on the other hand, is another story. The film was such a critical and box office bomb that it put the series on pause until Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins in 2005. If Christopher Nolan tried to place Batman in a jazzed up version of the real world, Burton tried to place him in a world that can only exist in the movies. There's no intrinsic superiority to either approach, but it's important to note the difference. Nolan's somber and self-serious Dark Knight films avidly deny the Caped Crusader's innate goofiness, the built-in absurdity of a comic book billionaire dressing up in a cape to have fistfights with a guy called the Penguin.
You're just jealous because I'm a genuine freak and you have to wear a mask.
You might be right.
The refreshing thing about returning to Burton's neo-Gothic approach is that it doesn't deny the absurd. Instead, he embraces it and contextualizes it within the tradition of the grotesque, where the darkly absurd is celebrated. Somehow, that mix is just right.